Imagine you've just spent the last several months making all the right choices. You researched safety ratings, compared fuel economy, and read reliability reports. Finally, you walked into that dealership feeling confident. You signed the paperwork and drove home in a car that smelled like ambition and fresh leather. For a moment, sitting in your driveway, you felt you had made a smart financial decision. This car was going to last you 15 years. Unlike those who buy unreliable junkers that break down every 6 months, you were responsible and practical. The monthly payment felt manageable, barely registering as a concern. Yet, without realizing it, you made one of the most quietly devastating financial choices of your adult life. Not because the car was bad, but because of something deeper than the car itself. Welcome to the channel. My name is Unk, and if you're new here, we create calm, honest conversations about the financial system shaping your life, often without you fully realizing it. If that resonates with you, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you never miss an analysis like this one. Now, the main concept in this conversation is something most people understand on an intellectual level, but rarely internalize. It's called depreciation. The way it's usually explained removes its significance. When someone says cars lose value over time, your brain treats it as a minor inconvenience instead of the wealth extraction mechanism it really is. This misunderstanding occurs because depreciation is invisible. It doesn't appear on your bank statement or trigger alerts on your phone. It quietly happens in the background while you're focused on whether your payment cleared or your insurance renewal went through. The psychological aspect of this issue makes it persist across generations and income levels. People tend to evaluate purchases based on how they feel at the moment of acquisition rather than how they perform over a decade. The automotive retail industry is built around this tendency. Dealerships use specific lighting and present financing terms in monthly payments instead of total cost. If someone said this vehicle will cost you $67,000 over 5 years, including interest, insurance, registration, maintenance, and opportunity cost, you would react differently than if they said it's only $589 a month. That reframing isn't accidental. It results from decades of behavioral research aimed at reducing your resistance to transactions that mainly benefit the seller. There's also something deeper happening at the identity level. In modern culture, the car you drive signals your financial status, taste, success, and reliability as a person. So when you choose a new car over a used one, it isn't just about transportation. It's about making a social statement. You're purchasing a version of yourself that feels more legitimate in certain environments. This impulse is entirely human, but carries a financial cost that few calculate before signing. The industry knows this well, which is why marketing for new vehicles rarely discusses the total cost of ownership and always emphasizes how the car will make you feel. Let's run the numbers. This is where our conversation shifts from philosophical to concrete. When you look at the math honestly, it can be hard to digest. We'll use a modest example. A new vehicle purchased for $38,000, which is close to the average transaction price for a new car in the United States. If financed over 60 months at about 7% interest, which is the current average for auto loans, your monthly payment would be around $752. Over the loan's life, you'd pay roughly $45,120 in total. So the interest alone costs you more than $7,000 before you even pay for maintenance or renew your insurance. The real story lives in the depreciation curve. A new vehicle loses around 9 to 11% of its value the moment you drive it off the lot, not after a year or 6 months, but immediately when the title transfers to your name. By the end of the first year, that vehicle typically loses between 15 and 25% of its purchase price, depending on the make, model, and market conditions. For a $38,000 vehicle, you could face $8,000 to $9,500 in lost value within 12 months of a decision you felt good about. By the time you finish paying off that 5-year loan, the car that costs you $45,000 is often worth between $14,000 and $18,000 on the open market. This creates a gap between what you paid and what the car is worth, somewhere between $27,000 and $31,000. That gap is called the cost of consumption. It's the price you paid not for transportation, but for the experience of having something new. Now, let's zoom out and consider what this pattern looks like over a lifetime. Most people don't buy just one new car. They buy a new one every 4 to 6 years throughout their working life. Each cycle restarts the depreciation clock, keeping them on the steep part of the depreciation curve. They miss out on the stability that comes from owning a vehicle outright for several years after paying off the loan. When you model this behavior over a 40-year working life, the total cost of constantly having a new car payment compared to a strategy of buying reliable used vehicles at the 3 to 5 year mark and holding them long term often results in a difference in net worth of several $100,000. This isn't an exaggeration. It's the result of compounding the difference in monthly cash flow over time. The money you don't spend on a car payment doesn't disappear. It can be redirected into appreciating assets. The systemic aspect of this issue is important. The new car cycle isn't just a personal finance habit, it's an economic framework. This framework was meticulously constructed throughout the 20th century through financing innovation, planned obsolescence, and cultural elevation of cars as status symbols. The institutions that benefit from your participation in this cycle, the manufacturers, dealerships, lenders, and insurance companies, aren't adversaries in some conspiracy. They are optimized to serve their own interests. Your interests only align with theirs at the point of sale, after which the financial dynamics diverge significantly. Understanding that divergence is the first step to making decisions that truly benefit your long-term financial position. The identity shift that occurs when people absorb this information is subtle yet significant. It isn't about becoming someone who drives a low-quality car or who is too frugal to enjoy life. It's about separating your sense of financial competence from how new your vehicle is. Recognizing that the person who bought a 3-year-old certified pre-owned vehicle paid it off in 2 years and redirected that payment into an index fund isn't driving a lesser life. They are building a fundamentally different balance sheet, one that compounds in their favor rather than against them. This shift from consumption as identity to assets as identity is one of the quietest and most powerful financial changes a person can make. The main point here is not to say that new cars are bad or that everyone who buys one is making a huge mistake. Context matters, and people have good reasons for their choices. However, the data is clear and the math doesn't change. This conversation really focuses on the gap between what we have been taught to see as responsible, buying new, buying reliable, buying safe, and what the actual numbers reveal when you consider the full cost of that choice over time. Closing this gap only takes a willingness to examine your assumptions honestly. Ask yourself whether the narrative you believed about smart financial decisions is truly yours or whether it came from an industry that benefits from your certainty. If you find this perspective helpful, share this video with someone you know who is currently making car payments or planning to visit a dealership. This isn't about changing their mind, but about providing them with a complete understanding before they sign.